Assalamu alaikum, beautiful ladies. Hope you're all well this week. Thank you for joining us. We are back in covering chapter by chapter of my book, Transformed by Values. Welcome to people who have joined us online. I encourage you to subscribe so that you can keep going with the progress of this book and be able to come back to it whenever you want to, especially because of the activity part, so you can practice the activities with my guidance, and it'll just, it's as if we're having a one-to-one, so it'll super, uplift your ability to connect with the activities, practice them, and get immense benefits from them, inshallah. Okay, so today the topic here is all about what are values exactly and what happens when we don't practice them effectively. So subhanallah, this is now really getting into a deeper level of what we've been talking about over the last few weeks. So now we're going to define values from various perspectives, and then we're going to talk about the Islamic perspective in terms of just touching on the consequences of what happens when we don't live our values. So let's get started, inshallah. Okay, so let's start with, defining values. Well, as we all know, values operate in different contexts of our lives. So we have values that stem directly from our religion. And then we have values that may or may not, be part of the different elements in our life. Inshallah, our goal is to have them all aligned so that, the values that are part of our relationships, our family, our work, our health, our character, etc., all are aligned to, the highest level of Islamic knowledge about what that value means and how we can live it. And of course, values comes from really our religion, but it also comes from, it can come from our life experiences. We can have, particular experiences, and those can impact. Again, when I talk about values from religion, for me, my understanding is that all values actually, by default, come from the religious, historical, teachings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They all come from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's qualities. So when I talk about them coming from different areas, I don't mean it in terms of the actual source. I just mean from where we might have picked up those values. So from knowledge we've gained, from family, our upbringing, from culture, career, environment, etc. So essentially, values are particular thoughts that have been fused with an emotional element of, obviously because of the fact that they have a sense of importance to us. And they basically are about anything in life that we think or feel or believe is important to us. And the key element here is that values operate with different levels of degree of importance to us, and it changes all the time. So, depending on where we're at and what our priorities are and how much reflection we take on, being able to live particular values, based on how we want to live them, that all impacts the level of importance to us, and that changes over time. It can change from, what's going on in our life, etc. So, my key focus in this book is to help us develop a consciousness where we can actually take control deliberately of ensuring that our Islamic values have, we operate and embody them with high levels of importance. Values also operate with, they also use interchangeably. You probably hear terminology of, that is linked to qualities, characteristics, for example, the value, the quality, the characteristic of peace, of patience, of positive thinking, etc. And values naturally will mean different things to different people. And that's really important for us to recognize, especially in our relationships. We should never assume that we know what someone's values are. And the difference lies in how we represent that value. And that's what this chapter is all about, because we can know, okay, Self-control is really important in Islam. God consciousness, patience, perseverance. But how we actually represent that value to us is something that we need to be aware of, so that we can, address it. Is this really in line with the Quran, with the Sunnah? And in terms of our ability to embody that practice. So having a look at this infographic, it just gives a nice sort of snapshot of values. So, another way we can define values is as the ideas, the principles, and the beliefs that guide us, that guide our thinking, our emotions, our behaviors. So, you might call them the roots of like the roots of a tree. They really are the roots of everything we are and everything we do. Hence, values really do shape. They shape how we think about everything, how we think about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, how we think about ourselves, how we think about others, about life, about the future, about the world, about the next life, etc. And how we are understanding and living our values really does define us. It defines who we are, what we stand for, what our goals are, etc. So in a way, they are like the CEO of your mind. What does a CEO do? It filters, so our values will filter what something means, so for example, you can have an experience, but however you represent and understand that value is really going to, determine how you are experiencing, life on a daily basis, subhanAllah. So our values are the filters. They're the filters through which we live and experience our version of reality, our perceptions, etc. So again, that just highlights how it's going to be unique for everyone. Okay, so what are the consequences of not living up to our values? So let's start with, asking ourselves the question of how many Islamic values do I wish I could live by more effectively or more consistently? For example, how many of us would like to be more God conscious throughout our day to guide our behaviors, our thoughts, our responses, or remaining strong in faith when we're under pressure or stressed, etc. So the key idea here is to recognize that if we are not experiencing, our most important values, in a way that we believe is, recommended by Islamic teachings, then what we find is, for example, let's say, inability to be patient during particular difficulties, then what that leads to is, results that, are not very favorable to us, to others. So pain of some sort will often await when we're not practicing our Islamic values. And obviously I mean that in various contexts, etc. And so it can lead to dissatisfaction, feeling dissatisfied in life, and that can lead to spirals of, perhaps negative thinking patterns or emotional patterns. And if we use temporary solutions to distract ourselves, that can actually make it worse. So, what I have found in, over the last 20 years in my work is that a lot of problems that, and I say this with myself as well, in life and with clients and participants, actually, when we get down to the root cause, it's usually the result of failing to live up to a particular value. It could be maintaining, the inability to remain patient during pressure, or maintain your faith under, a challenge or a test. So as the source of many problems, it's really important for us to do self-examination and to become aware of, what does this mean for me, and and to highlight the importance of us working actively on our values. So a little bit of a self-reflection. I'm going to just have a bit of a drink here because my throat a little bit dry. So a little bit of a self-reflection. I'd like you to think about a recent time where you experienced a negative state that was prolonged. So negative states are part of life, but one where you feel that you did not do justice to either resolving it or managing it well, etc. And so as you reflect upon it, consider, how is this connected to my inability to practice a specific value? Right? So take a moment to do that. What that does is it obviously opens up, your awareness of how our values are driving our experiences. So you can do that, regularly to become more aware of these. So then you have something, substantial to say, okay, wow, I really need to work on this value. It's coming out in these situations. So again, the more we get to the root cause of, how our, problems manifest in life, the more we can have control over how to manage them better, inshallah. And then the next life, of course, for us is the ultimate consequence. So really, what could be more critical than not living up to an Islamic value, where, as I've mentioned a few times, the result is not, the akhirah is not 1,000 years, it's not 1,000,000 years, it's not 100 million years, it's eternal. So anything that we fail to resolve, etc., will have its consequences, or failure to, address important Islamic values that, we need to really strive and take effort towards living. So what does this tell us about what is needed? What do we need to do to take our Islamic values to the next level? Well, for me, there's one message here, and it means that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, through his kindness, is really saying to us that we need to improve, we need to upgrade some area of our skills or strategies, and that's why the theme of my book is about excelling in our, psychological skills, emotional skills, social and spiritual skills, because these are, combined with our focus on a particular value we're working on. This will just really enable us to excel, in so many ways, subhanAllah, becoming stronger and wiser. So, and, we all know, that our life problems are tests and opportunities, but they show us where we're at, So use them as treasures of, this is where I can make the greatest growth in my life, especially if you notice that you're having the same test or the same problem, it means there's something I'm missing here, or I need to, really improve in so that I can, improve and grow in my, whichever life area domain, inshallah. Okay, and at the end of the day, it's all about getting into deeper levels of our own personal truth, and how we understand life, and how well are we operating with truth within ourselves and our communication, and in terms of wisdom, inshallah. So this was a short chapter, so I'm going to actually jump to chapter 4, where we're going to start doing some activities. So beautiful. One of my favorite pictures. So chapter 4 is now taking what we've learned and looking at, okay, how well do I actually know my own values? Yeah. And how well am I living them? So, and the key question here is all about the fact that as Muslims, we know we will be audited when we meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for everything, that we've done in our life. So why should we wait? We need to, evaluate now. Where are we at in terms of our values while we still have time left, inshallah? So the starting point for that is, what are our current values that form part of our daily life and actions, and we always start with the, perfect values criteria that the Prophet ﷺ has, embodied and shown us and role modeled. So we ask ourselves, which of these, for example, of course, we don't want to be overwhelmed. Okay, I have to practice all these perfectly, but it's about us choosing, what do I want my life to be about, and, where are my gaps, what are the things that are most, I feel most, are most important to me in terms of the various areas of my life, inshallah. So this first activity, when I did this about 20 years ago, subhanAllah, I can't tell you how it changed my life. I thought, okay, I knew what my values were and I understood them. But when I did this activity, in my training, it really just opened up a deep level of understanding myself and being able to improve myself through the path of values. So I'm going to go through this and I'm going to read through this, but when I did this activity, we literally took half a day just for this activity. So I will get you started by guiding you through it. And I highly recommend that you take half a day, 2-3 hours to go through this, because this is really, when I was just mentioning a minute ago about, we are accountable to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we want to, be the type of Muslims where we don't leave things to chance. We don't just wish, we do, we plan, we reflect. So inshallah, this is a great starting point for that. So the activity is as follows. Okay. Oh, by the way, in terms of page numbers, the paperback, the hard copy, and the ebook all have different page numbers. So I would suggest you just go through, I'm identifying for you which chapter we're on, so you can pretty much figure out, and the activities are numbered, so you won't have any problem there. Okay, let's go. So number 1, choose an area below, okay, one at a time. Okay, so starting with spiritual religious life, then moving on to personal development, character, emotional, mental, social habits, then relationships, whether it be, whatever is, relevant to you, marriage, parenting, friendships, right? Health and fitness, and education and career. And of course, you can create your own, your own set criteria. That's obviously up to you. And then the activity is as follows. So reflect on and choose at least 5 enjoyable experiences in that area. So from past experiences. So where you had, positive experiences, positive emotions, positive thoughts. And then number 3 says relive that experience, right? So you might close your eyes, simulate it, and pay attention to, in that situation, what was I seeing or saying to myself or feeling or doing, okay? So becoming aware of those elements. And then number 4, become aware of the key values you are experiencing. And how you do that is you ask yourself, what is important to me when I'm living this experience, right? So as an example, Mariam, she started with spiritual religious life. And she remembered, recent experience of her prayer, closing her eyes, reliving it as if she was there, a really, a prayer where she felt really connected. Maybe it was in Ramadan or any particular, for whatever reason. And as she relived it, she remembered, the elements of that experience, conversations, dua she had with God. Maybe there was a new book that she had been reading and that all sort of also impacted it. And then after this, she asked herself what was important, and she came up with values like, having peace is really important to me, and this is what this experience shows me, or, having peace and security, or increasing my wisdom and knowledge. So that's obviously going to be different for everyone. And then number 4 is record your answers, right? You can do that in your journal or wherever. And then repeat. So go back to each category, right? So go back to that, to each category, and do at least 2 to 3, if you've got time, do 5, so that you just get this really rich awareness of what your values are, yeah? And then do that for each of those. Then what you do after you've done that, you are now ready, okay? And there's a table here so you can list them, right? What your key values are in each area. And then now you're ready to take it to the next level where you're going to explore and evaluate, So you take one value at a time and you now evaluate, where am I at? What's my ideal? To live the kind of Islamic life I want to be, the best Muslim I want to be, what is my ideal? So let's look at an example here. So the first box says, list your values from the last activity. They're important to you, okay? For example, sincerity in my prayers. And then evaluate how often have I been experiencing this in a typical week or during relevant contexts, right? So in this case, someone might say, okay, 50% of the time, 30%, 70%, 100%, inshallah, that's our goal, 100%. And then the third box is rank them. So now how well have I been living this value? So again, I love, the fact that by doing this, you're now taking a higher level of, become clarifying to yourself how you are operating with your value, how you are living it. And it's better you rank yourself before Allah ranks us, So you give yourself an honest, interpretation. And now the most important part is, how well do I want to live this value? What's my ideal? So, for example, this person is saying, I want to maintain sincerity 90% of the time with my prayers, when I meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I'm sure you can kind of, see from the nature of these questions how impactful they will be on you becoming aware of your values, how you're living them, and what you can do to, or before we say what you can do, what you need to do in order to reach the kind of values embodiment you want. So here there's some other examples. For example, personal development, being patient when my expectations are not met, spending quality time with someone that's important to me, exercising 3 times a week to stay healthy and strong as a Muslim, reading books to improve a particular area that's important to my, values. So by doing that in the various areas of your life, you will just now have something to really motivate you towards working on your values. Because for me, when I actually did this, I now felt, wow, I can't cop out anymore and just, hope. And now I really feel that it's like someone's just given you a report card and you've seen your results, and you're like, okay, I have to do something about this now, because I've done an evaluation. I've analyzed myself in this way. And subhanAllah, we, in work contexts and other contexts, we apply these kind of concepts. So why not in our personal growth? That's the most important for our Islam. So with that in mind, then reflect on how positive the benefits would be, once you do this, and how, your life will start to improve in terms of, any gaps or areas for improvement in your character, in your well-being, in your relationships, because now that you've identified, for example, even just the ranking part, and you're working on it, you will now have something to say, oh, wow, okay, look back on where I was and where I am now. You know what I mean? You'll be able to sort of mark your progress and feel that you are progressing. And that's, our goal, of course. And also consider, how would my life roles improve, as a Muslim, as a parent, as professional, etc. So now that you would know by doing this activity what your current values are and how well you're living them, then the next step is to ask the ultimate success question, is the way I'm currently living my values enough to achieve the success, the peace, the, level of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's pleasure that I want in the next life, really? So that's really the driving question here, is this enough? Am I satisfied with the way I'm living, my values? And so now you have this platform to work on them. So what this does is, it helps us to clarify the details of this, and create a criteria. So now what we do is we take them to the next level of clarifying, what do I mean? So when I talk about God consciousness, so this is just building upon the last activity. Let me actually clarify what that looks like for me, what that sounds like, what that feels like, what would I be doing, how would I know that I'm being God conscious or patient or resilient or, merciful, etc. in the kind of context that I want to. So this next activity then opens up your framework for expanding on what this value looks like in, how you want it to be in your life and where you're at. So the kind of questions here are starting with identifying. So you take one at a time that you want to work on. And then in the second row, you list the why aspects. So what are the reasons and benefits why you want and need to live by this value? What is so important to you, about this, and how it improve how you think, act, and feel. So, for example, in this case of God consciousness, for this person, their thoughts, they think that it would help them avoid negative thoughts. It would help them stay positive during stressful situations by having a higher level of God consciousness. And I would also add here, because, a bit of more description. So when you say God consciousness, how, what, 10% of my day, 20%, in particular contexts, in particular places, etc. Because the more you add specific details, the more you now can, work on those particular, focus areas. You now have more to focus on. And start small and build, that's the key thing. So continuing with the example, this person's actions, they believe, would be more positive with their kids or loved ones, and they would feel more at peace with themselves. So here they've identified, the benefits, the importance, how it would impact them. And by doing this, again, you are just expanding on how you, believe practicing this to greater levels would impact you. And so now it powers up your motivation to say, wow, look at how much this is going to really improve my life. And then the last set of questions is, how will I know I'm practicing this to higher standards? What's my criteria, for knowing that? What might I be doing or saying or seeing or feeling that proves this? So in this example, this person says, I'll communicate with more awareness of God. My prayers, my religious practices would improve in the level of my focus and sincerity. Or in my speech, I would be remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala more during the day, maybe in particular contexts more, etc. Or I would feel more stability and peace during my day. So again, I'm sure you can appreciate the value of this activity. And this activity, when I did this for the first time, and I regularly update them, the first time it will, I recommend, again, you take aside a few hours, and it's worth it, of course, because this is you saying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is how, and you are presenting this to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We are doing this for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for his pleasure. So, it's worth, everything. So taking that time to do that is priceless. And so here you have a template that you can use for the different areas. You can, create that in your own journal, in your own way, etc. And regularly update it, come back to it, but use this process to keep learning about yourself and where am I at with my values and where do I want to be, so that inshallah when we meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we can meet him with that mindset of self-improvement, for his highest pleasure. So alhamdulillah, I might end there. There's one or two last activities I highly recommend you do where you rank your values to just help you hone in and focus on your goals, especially in terms of, when you're making choices. It's a really great a way of being able to focus on your priorities, etc. So there's some activities there that you can do. And the last one is creating like your own personal promise statement. So where you take some of your values and create a statement that, you might hang up somewhere, put it somewhere, regularly read it. So it just puts them sort of into metaphors that become now a beautiful affirmation for you to motivate yourself regularly. For example, this value, staying positive under pressure. All right. So this person has written the statement of, to seek the positive in every challenging situation. What you are doing is based on the interpretation you've done, the clarification, the criteria, you now create this statement, yeah? Okay, so to seek the positive in every challenging situation and stay hopeful when things don't meet my expectations for the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Or in terms of honesty, to be true to myself in thoughts, feelings, and intentions. So this is a really beautiful way to take the values activities in this chapter and then turn them into some affirmations so that it just even deeper drives your motivation to stay on track with them, to have them in your consciousness regularly, and to live by them, which is the most important part. Okay, well, thanks for today, ladies. We'll have our discussion now, and inshallah next week we will be starting part 2, where we explore specific areas in greater detail based on the different domains of our life and how we can connect those to excelling in our values, inshallah. So till then, take care and do subscribe and like this. That will be super amazing so that we can share, this valuable knowledge, inshallah, to others. All right. Assalamu alaikum.